everyone. Good morning, and my name is Janelle Hobson. I am an associate professor in women's studies, also the graduate director of our program here. I just wanted to officially welcome you to our 8th annual Women's Studies Student Conference. This is definitely an event that has become institutionalized in some ways in our department. It started out as a class conference the first time we did this in 2002, in which students in the graduate seminar on feminist theory decided to organize a public event in which they would share their papers and their projects to a general public. It has since grown into call for papers and inviting different graduate students, undergraduate students to participate based on certain themes relating to women's studies. And now I'm pleased to announce that we're once again an international student conference. We actually have participants from all over the United States, but as well as from Canada and also from Australia. So we're expanding, and it's very interesting what you can do when you issue a call for papers online. So that's definitely part of that process. So I just wanted to quickly make a very quick few remarks in terms of acknowledgments. I definitely want to thank all of the students enrolled in my graduate seminar, Orientation in Women's Studies. They're all here. Can you kind of quickly stand up so people can see who the organizers are? All right, so thanks again for all of this. I also want to quickly go through sponsors who help us basically fund this event too. So there's our Department of Women's Studies, University Auxiliary Services, Tessa's Lark Tavern in downtown Albany, the Catalyst Women's Studies Graduate Student Organization Group, and also Honest Plate decided to donate for our luncheon. So hopefully they will get here once we get through the breakfast. So if you haven't had any coffee or bagels, make sure you do that. Feel free. We tend to have a very casual way of participating in this event. So always feel free to go get yourself some more coffee, some more bagels while people are presenting without being too disruptive. But you can definitely feel free to do that because we're all about sustaining your appetites, whetting your appetites, as well as feeding you, both intellectually as well as physically. So I'd love for you to feel that you have that space to feel very comfortable here, as well as to see it as a sort of safe space too. We usually love this room, Humanities 54, because of the comfy little chairs. So, and it's an all-day conference. Some of you may be able to stay for the whole event. Some of you may only be here for the morning. Some people, you can anticipate more people coming in the afternoon. Not everybody can rise up early. So I appreciate those of you who are here early to actually already be here. I do want to share a few things with you about the theme, Who's Queer, Who's Queer? And if you go to our online website, you'll see we actually have an archive of past conferences. And I challenged the students this semester to go through the archives and look at the different themes that we have presented in the past. What have we not yet done? And so it was a unanimous decision. We haven't really looked at queer colleges and queer studies yet. Why don't we highlight that? And the excitement and the anticipation has been something that I thought was really useful and really showed that we need to have this conversation. We've had other kinds of conversations in the past. Last year we did a theme on race matters to feminism. That was another conversation that needed to take place. The year before that we did one on new media and social justice. I just received an email from one of our participants who just published a paper she did when she presented 2 years ago. So obviously there are ways in which you can present your work here and actually have that develop even further and in those kind of progressive ways. So this semester I thought was fascinating because I found out that once we were advertising the title of this theme, one, I was just informed that Facebook just reported abuse because of the link that was provided to our conference theme. When I was trying to get an announcement on our electronic billboard, here on Washington Avenue, the media person said, wow, that's shocking, when I mentioned the title. So, who's queer? Who's queer? I think we really need to ask this question and to have this conversation, because who knew that people were still being shocked by this, or would actually report it as offensive and abusive? So I do want to commend the organizers for being brave enough to still put that call out there, and for all of you who are participating to actually participate and to be here so we can have a fruitful conversation. And I think you'll be really inspired, because if you look at the program, we have a number of diverse topics that address this particular question. So on that note, I do want to turn things over to the organizers, starting with Carrie Soika, who is going to offer some opening remarks.
So I'm Carrie Soika, and I'm one of the student organizers, and I'm here just to give you a couple opening remarks about where we were coming from in our ideas for this conference, which we have called Who's Queer, Who's Queer. A lot of it came about from trying to discuss some of the tensions between queer studies and feminism and women's studies, right? So in some ways, I mean, a lot of this is coming from a criticism of women's studies being only about women, right? And we know it's not anymore. It's not just about women, but so often our work and our research focuses on that. And while there can be some strengths from that, there can also be some limitations. So we wanted to start to talk about bringing queer studies into feminism and women's studies, not just to talk about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender folk. That's not the point, but to start to use that queer studies lens, which is talking about fluidity, which is talking about boundaries, which is talking about those borders between our identities, right? And so to start to question that and to bring that into conversation with all of the great things that we have gained from feminism and women's studies. So we have a lot of hope for that, but at the same time, we also wanted to make sure to address some of the criticisms that have come from women's studies and from feminism toward queer studies, toward queer theory. Some of those, being like an androcentric bias within queer studies, a white bias within queer studies. The fact that the very fluidity that we're talking about in queer studies is often can be related to class or national privilege. That oftentimes, and this critique coming from women's studies is also important. So in creating this theme, we wanted to pose questions, to ask people to really start to get at some of these tough issues. And some of those questions that we posed in our call for papers were, how do we understand queer? Whose definitions of queer matter? Is there a place for queerness in feminism and women's studies? What are the implications of queering or not queering feminist inquiry? And so when we set out to do this, we weren't just looking for one answer to those. We were trying to get a broad range of those. And so yeah, I mean, we're really excited to have this conference. In the Women's Studies Department, we recently have added an lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer studies minor here on our campus. So it is something that's happening. It's happening globally as well, that women's studies and queer studies are coming into conversation more and more. So we're excited to be a part of this. We're excited to have our 4 sessions today. And with that, I'll leave it to our next session.